Question from Becky from Hong Kong. Dear Ajahn, I heard that the Buddha told us not to associate with fools. That's how they articulate with metta practice, or that should or should not renounce strengths in that aspect.
I think we should always have compassion and metta for anyone, even if someone seems to be foolish. It is always good to have compassion and metta, and it's always good to be kind to them. It's always good to be, do things in a good way towards such people. But you should also make sure that your main friends, those people that you associate with, those people that you hang out with, I know Becky from Hong Kong quite well, actually, and you come here to Bodhinyana Monastery quite often, so I know that generally speaking, you hang out with really good people, and so that's wonderful, and that should be your mainstay. That is what supports you. But you're right, you shouldn't just, even if you have old friends who are, not as, maybe as spiritually inclined, or maybe not as kind as they should be, sometimes it is good to hang out with them a little bit. I mean, I know for myself, I still have some friends from lay life myself, from my university days. And when I go back to Europe, which is only once every, well, it's been a while now because of COVID, but when I go back to Europe, I go and say hello. And some of those friends are really nice people, really good-hearted people. Some of them are maybe a bit more ordinary. I wouldn't say they are fools, but maybe a bit more ordinary. But I go and say hello, and I think, okay, maybe I can have a little bit of a beneficial impact on them, So know the right amount. Don't do it too much. If you do it too much, you're going to get dragged down with them. Know your strengths, know your ability to hang out with people who are not perfect, who may be living a bit immorally or whatever. And if you know your limits, you know what you can do, then I think you should find the right balance somewhere here.
Thank you, Ajahn. Question on living in the present and not hoping for the future. How should we approach planning for the future, setting goals, having hopes in life? Example, parents always teach their children to think and plan for the future. Or only referring cases of mindless attachment to the future.
It's okay to plan a little bit. You have to plan a little bit. It's impossible. You cannot live if you don't plan a little bit. Even in the monastery, we plan. In the monastery, we decide we're going to build some new kutis. We have just finished 6 new kutis now in the monastery over here. And of course, to be able to do that, you have to plan. You have to go to the shire, you have to, the local government, and you have to ask for permissions, and you have to do all the paperwork, and you have to order the right thing. You have to get builders to build it, and all of these kind of things. So you cannot live without planning. But you plan, but you, at the same time as you plan, you realize that you are doing it just to make things work. You're not doing it because you think that it will lead to some kind of wonderful world and that you're going to create a very happy life for yourself. You do it because it is necessary. You cannot live at all without planning. But you understand the downside. You understand that the plan may not work out. You understand that there may be a war in the meantime. You understand there may be another pandemic. You understand that people may die. This is one of the very most heartbreaking things in life, is the fact that people die. The people who are closest to us, sometimes they die here. Even very close family members, Sometimes, and I know this is one of the most difficult things of all, is parents who have children that die. It's very, very difficult for a parent to take when a child dies. But this happens. So because of that, you have a realistic idea of the future. You understand that there's always going to be very, very uncertain. But still, you plan. You plan because you know that there is no choice. We have to plan. Otherwise, the world doesn't work either. So you find that balance between planning the right amount, but without hoping for some kind of, something kind of marvelous and magnificent to happen in the future. You understand that all of these dreams about the future very often turn out to be wrong. So you are realistic, and then you plan with what you have.
Thank you, Ajahn. Ajahn, could you explain the connection or correlation between mano vijnana, mind consciousness, and choice, mental volitional action. Thank you.
The connection between mano vijnana and choice is just that I'm not sure exactly what you are looking for in that question, but maybe I'm not sure whether you're looking for some kind of Abhidhamma answer, but I'm not really so interested in the Abhidhamma, so I can't really give you an Abhidhamma answer. But the mano vijnana is there's 6 kinds of vijnana. There's 5 senses, and the 6th one is the mano vijnana, the vijnana of the mind itself. Yeah, and the most important part of our life is mano vijnana. That is where all the other 5 senses, they come together in the mano vijnana, the consciousness of the mind. And that is really where we experience the world, where we interact with it in a personal sense, is in the mind. The external senses are just kind of almost like information coming in, but the real reality comes from within. So choices, when you make choices, what you affect the most is the mano vijnana. Yeah? So when you make a good choice, your mano vijnana brightens up. It becomes more bright, more happy as a consequence. So the choices, when you feel happy about yourself, you feel good about yourself, that happens mostly in the mano vijnana, the mental consciousness, and it arises from the choices that you make in your life. I'm not sure if that was your question, but that is kind of what comes to mind at the moment.
Thank you, Ajahn. Next question. Bante, since I first started learning to meditate, I've been using rise and fall of the abdomen and find it very difficult to use the breath. Later, when I learned metta meditation, the teachers used the breath, and even some vipassana meditation teacher also used the breath. So I tried to follow, but after a while, it went back to rise and fall of the abdomen. How to overcome this problem? Let the in and out breath stay at the nostril.
It doesn't matter. You can follow the abdomen if you want. Yeah, the idea, one of the things is that you will notice that all the different schools or all the different traditions of meditation, they tend to view the breath in a different way. So the abdomen is like the Mahasi tradition. Yeah, that's kind of where they follow the abdomen. In the Goenka tradition, they follow the tip of the nose or the upper lip. That's what they follow there. And this is more common, is to follow the tip of the nose or the upper lip, because this is what the commentaries say. You know, they say that this is where you should follow the breath. But the way that Ajahn Brahm teaches, and I think it is perfectly in accord with the suttas, is just to be aware of the breath. Yeah, you are just aware of the breath. It doesn't matter where it is. You don't have to place it anywhere physically. You just know breathing in, breathing out. And you can know that you are breathing in just by being aware of what's happening. You can know you're breathing in without having any definite place of where you are breathing in there. Initially, when you start out your meditation, it may feel like you are watching it maybe in the abdomen, because the physical expansion, the physical expansion of your ribs and things is quite noticeable when you breathe. But after a while, when the breath comes down, it's almost like the physical aspect becomes less noticeable. And you're kind of just aware of the breath being there. Yeah, the breath becomes very refined after a while. It is also possible to feel it at the tip of the nose. Nas agga, it is called in the commentaries. Nas agga literally means tip of the nose. But it doesn't matter so much. If you want to follow it on the abdomen and you find that works, what matters is whether the technique makes you calm or not. Does it work? And if it makes you peaceful and you become calm and you can go deeper and deeper, it doesn't matter where you are observing the breath. If you have problem becoming calm, well, then maybe you can try to look at it in a different way. But it's not such an important thing here.
Thank you, Ajahn. Ajahn, when the mind became bright during meditation, I would ask, what is this? In spite of the teachings not to get excited, is this one of the 5 hindrances, doubt? Thank you so much.
Is it doubt? Wait, what? The light, the brightness of the mind is doubt. Is that the question?
Yeah.
The brightness in the mind is just a good thing. Yeah, if your mind becomes bright, it's wonderful, because the brightness of the mind means that you are brightening up, which is good. Yeah, because you want to be bright, you want the mind to be clear, you want to have that degree of happiness within it. This is exactly where you want to go. So it's wonderful. No, it is not doubt. Doubt is something quite different. Doubt is when you are uncertain about what are the good qualities. So if you are uncertain about the brightness and you wonder, is this really right? Is this wrong? Am I heading in the right direction? That is the doubt. But the actual brightness of the mind is a positive thing. Yeah, that is something that you should be developing. If the mind feels bright, excellent, well done, good. And with that brightness, what you will find is that you also have a degree of clarity usually. Mindfulness is often quite strong. You can feel the energy inside. You can feel that nuclear reactor inside becoming, kind of getting turned on. Yeah? And you can feel bliss sometimes, and piti and sukha, and all of these marvelous things. So you are definitely on the right track. If you feel brightness, well done, carry on, you're on the right. This is definitely nothing to be doubtful about. Yeah, you're heading in the right direction. So that's great.
Are there any mention of Buddha lands in the Theravada Sutta Pitaka?
Buddha lands. Buddha lands usually is what you find in the Pure Land Buddhism. It's kind of the Amitabha world and these kind of things. You know, when you see the Mahayana Buddhists, they always say Amitofo, and this is kind of their ideas about the Pure Lands. And you meet the Buddhas there and these kind of things. But this is a much later development of Buddhism. This is not part of the early Buddhist teaching. The early Buddhist teachings is what you find, what the historical Buddha actually taught. And no, there is no Buddha lands. This is like a fantasy world. This is like a fantasy. It's almost like a dream. It's a little bit like the heavenly realm of the Christianity, or any other theistic religion. The idea that you go someplace and you can enjoy yourself and you have all the pleasures that you ever wanted and these kind of things. It is something that came during Buddhist history. And I think that it is actually quite dangerous, because it leads you to desire the wrong kind of thing. Yeah, it leads you to apply yourself to kind of get into a realm where you can enjoy sensual pleasures. Instead of renouncing things, you are actually giving more craving very often when you talk about these Pure Lands. There is I think it's called, what's it called again? What are these sutras called? The Sukhavati Sutta, Sukhavati, something like that. And which describes the kind of the happiness of some of these Pure Lands, the Buddha worlds. And when you read them, the descriptions are very often very sensual descriptions of how you get satisfied and things with sensuality very quickly. And I say that this goes against the grain of early Buddhism. It is not really what the Buddha taught. This is taught by later generations of Buddhists. So I would be very careful with those kind of teachings.
Thank you, Ajahn. What happens to our consciousness when we are under general anesthetic during surgery?
I think what happens is that consciousness goes to a very kind of minimal state. Yeah, and so you remember the consciousness of a human being is almost like this is two-pronged. There's two aspects to human consciousness. One is the consciousness of the sensory organ. You see something, yeah, or you hear something, or you taste something, yeah? And then afterwards, the mind reflects on that thing. The mind recognizes it. The mind thinks about it, understands what it's about. And this kind of two-pronged idea of consciousness is actually found in the suttas. So the mind knows the sight afterwards. Yeah, you see the sight with your mind. The mind hears it afterwards. And it is when you have that secondary aspect of consciousness, that you know that you had a sight, you know that you saw something, the mind takes as an object, that's when you can remember things. You know, that's why things become very clear to you and you have a good memory of them. But if you just see something and the mind doesn't have any interaction with it, you don't think of it as your sight or whatever, then you basically won't remember those things. It's a bit like when you dream at night. Yeah, you probably had the experience when you dream at night. You wake up in the morning and then you know you had a dream, and then within 2 minutes the dream is completely gone and you can't remember it anymore. Yeah, and that is because you haven't really thought about that dream. It hasn't really become solidified within you. And so I think anesthesia is something like this. It blocks out the higher aspect of consciousness where you're able to think about something here. So there is some subliminal, some very subtle aspect of consciousness left that is kind of below the threshold of ordinary experience. But there's some experience there, but it's a very kind of subtle thing. And that's why when you come out afterwards, you can't remember anything, yeah, because it was a very rudimentary kind of consciousness. But you are still conscious in a certain way, because consciousness, as long as you live, even if you are in a coma, there must be some subtle element of consciousness still remaining in a certain way.
Thank you, Ajahn. Is there any significance of the sutta's reference to night? Is it suggesting that because nighttime is more quiet, hence we will get better insight at that time?
Aha, okay. one fine night. Why isn't it one fine day? Why isn't it one fine week? Why isn't it one fine year? Why isn't it one fine lifetime? Why isn't it? Why exactly night? And I think the answer to that is that in the Buddhist teachings, they use the word night in the same way that we use day. In modern English, if you say you had one fine day, it means that you had one fine 24-hour period. One day is like 24 hours. It includes both night and day. Yeah, if you say one day, it means 24 hours. And in ancient Buddhism, the idea was that one night is also a period of 24 hours. They say one night instead of one day. So I think this is the meaning here. This is kind of the underlying meaning. But I think you are also right in the sense that night here may also be slightly more specific. Yeah, night may be about the fact that at nighttime you have more peace, yeah, more quietness, and often meditation at nighttime is often recommended by the Buddha. When you do that nighttime, then you know all the conditions are right. I think there's a twofold meaning there, that it is a 24-hour period, and also that it actually means that nighttime is actually preferable. So you can see that verse says you practice tireless all night and day, and then you are said to have one fine night. Well, obviously you had one fine night and a fine day, so probably refers to a 24-hour period. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. Did the Buddha use such ways, verse and prose, for disciples and lay people to absorb easily, since there was no written form back then?
I think so, yes. I think that's exactly the point. It's a way of helping people to memorize, yeah. So you have like a core message of the sutta, and then you kind of make a commentary on top of that. And the way to memorize things is very often that to having a summary, yeah, and then you have some kind of expansion, and then you summarize at the beginning, you summarize at the end, and in the middle you have like the expanded version of what is going on. So I think that's very, very much so. It's very much related to the idea of learning things and memorizing things. But even today, you know, when you hear a good teacher explain something, very often they will give you a summary first of all, then they will give you the main teaching, and then they will summarize again at the end. This is a very standard way of teaching something, because it kind of allows you to understand things in a better way. And the Buddha was a very good teacher. Yeah, he understood the idea of modern pedagogics, how to be a good pedagogue, so you could teach in a good way. He had a very good firm grasp of these things, and this is what you actually see in the sutras. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Ajahn. Sorry, Ajahn, this is a follow-up question. How does one stir away from doubt and other hindrances when hindrances appear in meditation? The brightness in meditation switched off when I ask, what is this bright light?
Yeah, because when you ask that question, well, then you're activating the mind. Yeah, you're activating the mind. And remember, the light is there because your mind is peaceful. It comes from peace. Yeah. So don't ask what it is. If you ask what it is, you already you are disturbing the meditation practice. So instead of asking what it is, just enjoy it. Enjoy what is happening here. If you have a bright light, presumably you are enjoying it. Yeah? Presumably you are really peaceful. Presumably you are feeling some happiness and joy because of this bright light. So enjoy what is going on and then take it deeper. Go as deep as you can. And then after the meditation, when you come out, that is the right time to ask, what was this? And if you investigate it properly, you will understand that what it is merely the appearance of the mind when the mind becomes peaceful. This is what the mind looks like when it becomes peaceful. This is the nature of the development of the mind in this particular way. Yeah, and so you can see that this actually is a very positive kind of experience. And then you ask yourself, what are the qualities of this experience? And if you can see that the mind is clear, if you can see that the mind doesn't have any confusion, if you can see that there is a lot of bliss and a lot of happiness there, if you can see all of these things, then you will know that this is a very positive state of mind. Yeah, you will know this is actually something I should develop. It has all the qualities of good spiritual practice in it. Yeah, because that's what we want in spiritual practice. We want to be clear. We want to have no craving. Yeah, we want to have a sense of strong mindfulness. You want to have awareness, all of these kind of things. So if that is there, you know that you are on the right track. So wait with investigating till after you are finished. Then you are heading in the right direction. Don't do anything at that point. Stay with the light, stay with the brightness, and take it until the meditation comes to an end naturally by itself.
Okay. Dear Ajahn, how does one stop feeding the fantasy? It sounds easy, but if our habitual mind likes to think and there is no joy yet in meditation, starving the fantasy seems like a Sisyphean task.
Yeah, Sisyphean is the famous Greek fellow who was pushing the stone up the hill and who never reaches the top, and the stone always comes back down again. So yes, indeed. So what you have to just gradually realize that there is more happiness to be had in meditation than there is in fantasizing here. That is what you have to realize. The fantasizing is just a kind of indulgence in something. You're trying to find happiness somewhere, and actually there isn't much happiness to be found there. It's kind of empty. At the end of the day, you come out of the fantasy and it's all gone, and there's nothing there to really rely on or to kind of carry you forward. So you have to understand that if you want to create a good future for yourself, it is done by proper meditation, not through fantasy. That is where it comes about. But you are right that really the trick to make this whole thing work is to make the meditation enjoyable. That's really the trick. Once the meditation becomes enjoyable, then it is far, far easier to actually stay with the meditation object. So make sure, first of all, that you do the meditation in the right way. Yeah, don't force yourself in meditation. Don't try to watch the breath. Start off by just enjoying to sit back and to be at peace and to be at ease. Use a guided meditation. One of the powerful things about a guided meditation is that often it sets you in the right mood. Yeah, sometimes you may not be in the right mood, or you may be living at home with a big family, or maybe noisy or whatever, and the atmosphere may not be the atmosphere of meditation. So to create the atmosphere of meditation, it can be very useful to hear someone who has a voice that is very soothing, yeah, a voice that has a very powerful, peaceful quality to it. This is one of the things I love about Ajahn Brahm. When when Ajahn Brahm gives a talk, very often it has this very powerful, soothing quality to it. There's a very peaceful presence very often with someone like Ajahn Brahm. And when you feel that peace, when you actually get into the same mood yourself, and after a while you start to feel peaceful. So it can be very useful to listen to a guided meditation, not necessarily the words so much, but just the feeling that is given by someone who is a profound meditator can be very, very useful. And then you learn over time to just enjoy what you have. A little bit of peace, a little bit of tranquility, a movement away from restlessness and agitation of life. And you see the beauty in that peace. And if you keep on practicing in this way, there comes a point when you start to feel joy in your meditation practice. And when you start to feel joy, it becomes very, very attractive. In the meantime, do what you enjoy. Yeah, if you find that meditating for a long time just leads to endless fantasies and doesn't really work, try to meditate a bit more short. Yeah, sometimes even 10 minutes a day is okay. If that's all you can do, that's fine. And if you want to meditate a bit longer, well, it's entirely up to you. Also, remember that on the Buddhist path, the most important thing is not the meditation practice. The most important thing is your conduct, is how you live. If you live with kindness, if you live with all of these good qualities that we talk about all the time, then you're going to gain great benefit regardless. But if you meditate and you don't do the good conduct side of things, there will be very little benefit in the long run. The conduct is far more important than the meditation. I heard a story recently. There was a story of a lady here in Australia. I think it was a lady, maybe it was a man, I'm not sure. There was someone who had been doing meditation for a long time, maybe for 10 years or whatever. And during this period they had been doing meditation, they had turned away from television. They didn't watch television anymore because they realized that television is just a source of restlessness, a source of all this extra proliferation and all these extra images that you get in your mind. So they stopped watching television, and all they did for 10 years was just to meditate and to enjoy themselves. But then at the end of those 10 years, very recently, they had started watching television again. And when they started watching television, they became addicted to television. So after meditating for 10 years, trying to become peaceful, trying to give up all of these things, straight away, the addiction is back. And that's kind of fascinating. Why is that happening? Why does that addiction come back again? Well, the reason why we get addicted to things, whether it's television, whether it's food, whether it's cigarettes, whether it's alcohol, whatever it is that we are addicted to, it is because we are suffering. That's why we get addicted. There's some deep sense of dissatisfaction inside of us. And the way to kind of overcome that is by getting addicted to something and then getting the mind to get away from the suffering, because the addiction takes up all your attention. And so this is the problem that this person had. They had been meditating for 10 years. They had a reasonably satisfactory meditation, but they hadn't developed all the underlying qualities. They hadn't developed enough compassion. They hadn't developed enough metta. They hadn't developed enough kindness in their speech and their actions. So after 10 years, they basically were in the same place as when they started out. And because they were in the same place as where they started out, the underlying suffering was still there. And because the underlying suffering is still there, they got addicted to television. Bang! Addicted to television. So this shows you that the most important thing that we do on the spiritual path is actually living well, living with kindness, living with all of these good qualities. Not only living with them, but improving them all the time. Moving forward on these things, understanding our deficiencies, understanding our own shortcomings, and trying better as human beings. And when we do that, then we will no longer get addicted to television or indeed to anything else, yeah? Because these things seem silly when that happens. So remember, this is the most important part of the path. If you can do a bit of meditation as well, great. But more important than that is how you live. A bit of meditation can be good because it can help you in living well, yeah, because you start living well when you meditate a little bit. But meditation is the critical core part of the whole path.
Thank you, Ajahn. Sorry. The follow-up on the earlier question about the Mano Vinaya Sankara, the speaker says he's not asking from Abhidhamma perspective. And he says, Ajahn, can you provide some explanation between Sanya, perception, and Mano Vinaya?
Sanya and Mano Vijnana. Okay. Well, sanya is just is how we is perception. It is what we make out of the world. Sanya is how we understand the world. Yeah, you understand the world. When I'm sitting here now, I can see the screen. I can see Bobby on the screen, and he's just there, and a few more people, but not many. And so this is sanya, recognizing. I can recognize Bobby because I've known Bobby for many years. I know straight away this is Bobby. Or I can sit in this room, I can see a clock. How do I know it is a clock? Well, because of perception. I have developed that idea. I know it exists. So perception is just how we make sense of the world, our ability to understand the world in the right way. Now, Mano Vijnana is, you can say that there's two kinds of perception in a sense. There is the perception that you have through the eye, yeah, you see something, you recognize it through the eye, and then the consciousness afterwards takes that perception inside within the Mano Vijnana. And when the Mano Vijnana takes that perception of the eye, it can make more out of it. Yeah, it can develop it depending on the conditioning of your mind. It will then make different things out of that perception. So what initially is just a perception, you can start craving for it, for example. Yeah, this arises in Mano Vijnana after you see the thing in the world. Or you can have a view about it. Yeah, views and opinions are the kind of things that we give rise to because of the sense of I inside. This happens also within Mano Vijnana. Or it can be a sense of ownership. I see my, oh, these are my glasses. Ownership, yeah, these are my glasses. So straight away, you think of it in terms of ownership. So this is how the Mano Vijnana takes the kind of, almost like the raw perception of the world, the ordinary perception of the world, and transforms it into something defiled, something whereby you have greed, you have desires, you have ownership, you have views, and all of these kind of things. So that is, to some extent, how you see the connection between Mano Vijnana and Sanya. And if you want to look at that in more detail, one of the places where it talks about this in detail is the Madhupindika Sutta. This is in Majjhima Nikaya number 18, and it talks about the process of perception. Yeah, it talks about how consciousness arises, how you feel things, how you perceive them, then how you think about them. The thinking happens in Mano Vijnana, and then when you think about them, you have proliferation, you have papancha. And papancha is all this Mano Vijnana, building things out of raw experience. That are defiled and are problematic and carry on forever. This is the papancha side of things. So that is one way of connecting Mano Vijnana and Sanya.
Thank you, Ajahn.